And we are live.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this
And we are
special.
live.
Are we now live? Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this
And we are
special.
live.
Are we now live? Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this
And we are
special.
live.
Are we now live? Yeah. Good afternoon. All right. I'd like to welcome everyone for the 10th time to this special city council meeting, which I'll now call to order. Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Through the chair, roll call has been taken.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. But you're sitting in the CAO seats. You threw me off. All right. So members of council, does anybody have a declaration of pecuniary interest they need to make regarding items that are on the special city council agenda for this evening? And please, just a forewarning too, for this purpose, or if you want to speak, you have to physically raise your hand because I'm not in the chair where I get lists. So I just have to go by sight. So seeing none, we'll now move into, we don't have any presentations or delegations for this evening. So we'll now move into committee reports. Councillor Martin, can you please move the estimates committee report and state your seconder?
Thank you. I move seconded by Councillor McCurry that Estimates Committee Report 2022-02-02 be adopted as follows. 4.1.1 Approval of the Brantford Police Service and Brantford Fire Services 2022 operating budgets.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. So is there any discussion? Seeing none? Sorry. Oh, Councillor Sless, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like confirmation. The approval of the firefighter budget this evening does not include the 8 firefighters that were requested under unmet need, but that could be amended once we approve the entire budget, if there's a will to do that and a majority of council agreeing. Do I understand this correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. So this is base budget only. The unmet need for the additional firefighters will be dealt with at a subsequent estimates committee meeting.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. And then I guess just secondly, Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to support the police budget. I'm certainly anticipating and hoping to see a marked improvement in the downtown core and the feeling of safety that folks visiting it will experience. So I'm pleased to support it, and I look forward to the outcome of supporting it in a positive way, enhancing the downtown and making it safer. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Thank you. Councillor McCurry, you're next.
Mayor, thank you very much. I'm pleased to support this tonight as well. I'm hoping it'll be unanimous. We've certainly seen some lack of support in the community of late, some commentary that's not supportive of our police force. What we have before us tonight is a pretty substantial increase, some of which about 570,000 is for unmet needs to provide special constables in the downtown district and thereabouts to provide some extra support for the business community to make people feel a lot safer down there. A large part of their budget is really unavoidable due to contractual agreements and unavoidable costs. So I hope everybody will support this tonight. I know there's a bit of a sticker shock, and I would say that we do have some additional work on our budget to come. And there certainly is an opportunity for us to have a further impact on the bottom line and the resultant impact on primarily the residential taxpayer. Mayor, thank you.
All right, not seeing any other raised hands. I believe the police chief's online, is he not?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just sorry, Chief Davis. Councillor Martin would like to say something. So. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. my gut instinct is to vote against this because I don't agree with the way this is being brought forward. However, I do support our emergency services, and it's for that reason I'll be voting for it. But I don't agree with the process that led us here. But because of the nature of the item on the floor, I will be supporting it. Thank you.
All right. So Chief Davis, the unmet needs of 8 special constables for downtown beat patrol, that's part of your vision of stratified policing. Can you describe that for us again and how the other component parts of that, which would be Laurier security, bylaw enforcement, city private security, how that's all your vision for all of that working together?
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Mayor. I talked about this last year at the budget meeting and talked about a need for a stratified approach. This was also mentioned by MetScan. The term they used was having the appropriate resource respond to the appropriate type of call. And so what we do is we begin that delineation of duties. What we do right now is we're forced to send a regular constable who is very well trained, very well paid to deal with things that I really don't need to send a regular constable to. And so the special constables, we can give them the authorities that we need to give them to address the issues that we're seeing downtown. But as part of that stratified approach, there is still a requirement for security to take care of the city assets, whether it be city assets downtown, 5 Marlene, you name it. There's a role for bylaw that can fill that gap between security and the special constables. And then the special constables, they're that tier that would exist between bylaw and the regular constables. I can control their authorities. And just to refresh, the example I used last Monday was to use the comparison of a paralegal versus a lawyer. I can legislatively control the authorities the special constable has so they don't get sucked into the vortex like a normal constable. Much like in your profession, Mr. Mayor, as a lawyer, you know, the paralegal can represent to a certain point, but there is an end to that. And so that's where there is a cap, if you will, on what the specials can do. But there's absolutely still a need for private security for the city-owned assets, because without that, then the specials get sucked into that vortex where we're spending time at the parkade, we're spending time at 5 Marlene, we're spending time at other city assets. This core of special constables will be focused on that downtown entertainment education district.
Right. Thank you very much, Chief. And certainly, I congratulate Police Service Board for bringing this forward to meet the need that we've heard from many residents and businesses downtown, and also the fact that these are special constables, which we also know means that they're less likely to be reassigned and will be downtown taking care of the issues that are down here. So I as well am quite happy to support this. And yes, Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chief. How many will that mean will be in the downtown core on any particular shift?
I can't commit to that right now. At minimum 2. So with the 8, we're looking at different shifting schedules.
So would that mean that we wouldn't need all the security officers that we've hired for downtown to be there?
You would still need security because otherwise those, and I mean no disrespect to anyone when I say this, but those really low threshold calls that just need an attendance and observation, that's a great role for security. Those calls will still exist, and I'll use the parkade as an example. When you look at the number of calls that security's responded to in the parkade, if we took that on as well, we'll never be out on Market Street in Colborne and Dalhousie. We'll be stuck in the parkade. So there's definitely, in the stratified model, there's still a role for security for the city-owned assets. And then the special constables, we can focus more on the social disorder pieces where we can use provincial statutes and the lower threshold criminal code authorities to deal with.
Thanks, Chief. And I'm glad to have this before us today. Thank you.
Councillor Redley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm fully supportive of this increase for a very important unmet need in our downtown area. For many years, we have heard from citizens and businesses about the concerns for their safety, their business safety, their client safety, and this is, in my opinion, a very good step forward in providing another step, another phase to increasing our security for our downtown citizens and businesses. So that's all I need to say. I'm very happy, Chief. I hope you hire these people next Monday, if possible. So anyway, thank you for what you do.
All right, Mr. Deputy Clerk, let's call the vote.
Yes.
My vote's in the affirmative, Deputy Clerk.
Item 4.1, Estimates Committee Report 2022-0202 carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sless, Carpenter, Vanderstelt and Toski, Marn, Wall, McCreary, Utley, and Mayor Davis.
All right, we'll move to bylaws, and Planning Department has asked that there be an additional bylaw included in respect to a pretty standard relief in respect to a subdivision agreement. I believe there's a time requirement on this matter, so we'll move into bylaws. Councillor McCreary, understand you have the motion for first and second reading of the delineated bylaws.
Mayor, you understand correctly. Councillor Martin is my seconder. The lead be given to the mover and seconder to introduce the following bylaws for first and second reading. Number 15, 2022 being a bylaw of the City of Brantford to relieve certain parts of lots or blocks from the provision of Section 50.5 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, as amended Part Lot Control PLC 01 2022, June Colwood Way and Bellhouse Avenue, Corporate Policy 10, Delegation of Authority Schedule B. And bylaw number 16, 2022, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford with respect to the special meeting held today.
Thank you very much, Councillor McCreary. So does anybody want those two bylaws separated for discussion purposes? Physically raise your hand. Seeing no raised hands, Mr. Deputy Clerk, please take the vote on first and second reading.
In the affirmative, Chris. Thank you.
Yes.
The first and second reading of bylaws 15-2022 and bylaws 16-2022 carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sless, Carpenter, Vanderstelt and Toski, Marn, Wall, McCreary, Utley, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you, Chris. We'll move into third reading. I believe Councillor Vanderstelt, you have that resolution.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That bylaw 15, 2022 through to and including bylaw 16, 2022 be taken as read a third time and be finally passed and signed by the mayor and clerk. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody wish the two bylaws separated for discussion purposes at third reading? Oh, and your seconder, Councillor Vanderstelt?
Seeking a seconder, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Toski's raised her hand. I feel like I'm in a bidding war here. Councillor Toski's thrown her arm up. Anyone want the bylaws separated for discussion purposes? Not seeing a raised hand. Deputy Clerk, please take the vote.
In the affirmative, Chris.
Yes.
The third reading of all bylaws carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sless, Carpenter, Vanderstelt and Toski, Marn, Wall, McCreary, Utley, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you very much, Chris. So that brings to an end the special city council meeting. And I'll turn the matter over to Councillor Martin so that in his very able hands as the chair of the estimates committee. reconvene as the Estimates Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll now call the Estimates Committee meeting to order. Just a reminder, all motions must be moved and seconded. Each speaking opportunity for members is 3 minutes. There's no limit to the number of times a member can speak on the same question. Please go to the February 18th Estimates meeting in eScribe to participate in the voting. Roll call has been completed. Yes, okay, thank you. And if appropriate, we'll attempt to do a dinner break at about 6 o'clock if necessary. Members of the committee, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or any items for any of the items on Estimates Committee agenda? Seeing none, and at this time, I'll mention that Councillor Sicoli had a conflict. She will be joining us as soon as she's able. And with that, Joelle Daniels, can you give us a overview of our starting point, please?
Yes, through you, Chair Martin. The starting point for this evening is a 2022 operating budget totaling $172,765,864. That's a budget impact after assessment growth of 1.73%, which is an average residential tax impact of 2.1% or $70.59, an average commercial tax impact of 2.1%, an average industrial impact of 1.89%, and an average multi-residential tax impact of negative 4.15%. Chair Martin, did you just want me to jump into 7A?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we are starting this evening with the 2022 operating budget for the Community Services and Social Development Commission. So information on this commission budget begins on page 62 of your operating budget document. The budget totals $16,113,469 and represents a 2.03% decrease overall from the prior year.
Okay, and with that, we'll ask Marlene Miranda, General Manager of Community Services and Social Development, to commence the presentation with respect to the 2022 budget.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Through the chair, Marlene Miranda, General Manager, Community Services and Social Development. I am pleased to share the CSSD 2022 operating budget. I want to thank the CSSD team and the finance teams for all their efforts and collaboration to develop the budget presented this afternoon. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The CSSD Commission is made up of 3 departments: Family and Income Stability, which provides social assistance and other supports to individuals and families in need. The second one is Housing and Homelessness, which provides oversight to our rental units, delivers homelessness programs, and works with nonprofit housing providers and other levels of government to provide affordable housing options. The third and final department is the Community Programs and Social Development Department. This department manages a wide range of community programs from children's services and early years in age-friendly planning and everything in between. This includes oversight of community centers, youth leadership programs, aquatics and fitness programs, neighborhood associations, day camps, and community events, just to name a few. We also work closely with community partners such as the Council on Aging, Brantford Immigration Partnerships, Post-Secondary School, childcare providers, Elderly Abuse Prevention Committee, and others to develop strategies and initiatives that support the well-being of our residents. CSSD is the People Commission. We work collaboratively across our departments, across the corporation, and across the community to support individuals and families at all stages of life in the city and county. We offer a wide range of services in improving safety and security, growth and development, health and well-being, economic independence, and employment opportunities for residents. The City of Brantford is the service manager for housing and homelessness, children's services, and Ontario Works. The province shares the administrative costs for these programs, and the cost sharing varies between 50 and 100%. These programs serve both the City of Brantford and the County of Brant. As such, the costs are shared with both the city and county per the cost sharing agreement. Next slide, please. CSSD continues to deliver on the vision, priorities, and plans of council to focus on children, youth, and seniors, and to continue to work and support the great work of the neighborhood associations, community partners, and service providers. CSSD has many initiatives, as you will have seen in the package, and this just highlights a few in each of the departments. Neighborhood programming, community events. In 2022, we are hopeful to return to our pre-COVID programming and service levels as provincial restrictions continue to be lifted and we can welcome our community back to the many excellent events and programs we offer. Youth, seniors, and children's service strategies. As council is aware, the department has recently brought forward a number of exciting strategies, including the Empowering Youth Strategy, the Healthy Aging Plan, and Building Our Community from the Kids Up. Our 10-year Children's Services Plan. These plans provide a vision for how we will continue to innovate and serve our residents over the coming years. Discretionary and Special Benefit Program Review. The FIS Department Service provides assistance with a variety of items to ensure health and well-being of families receiving social assistance. Examples include, but are not limited to, mobility aids, orthotics, and emergency dental care. The items covered in funding amounts have not been reviewed for several years. Due to the changes to assisted funeral charges, we now have the financial resources to update and refresh the discretionary benefits program. Electronic signature project. Digital and modernization of social assistance is ongoing. The program will allow people to sign required financial eligibility documents without physically attending at the office. On to housing and homelessness. We continue to support the work of the Mayor's Housing Partnership Task Force. In the first 2 years, we are well on the path with plans for 179 units, either complete or at various stages of the approval process, and continue to actively pursue community partnerships and funding of all levels of government to meet our goals. The Housing Stability System Consultant Review. The Housing Stability System Review is underway to ensure our formal emergency shelter systems have sufficient numbers and appropriate form and target spaces throughout the year, with ability to expand when necessary. For example, during the winter, and cold alert seasons. COVID-19 has added a new layer of complexity, so future direction needs to ensure spaces are also conducive to effective public health guidance for infection prevention and control. The review will also take into consideration options to address the unsheltered needs. Finally, on this slide, long-term asset management plan for city-owned housing communities. Maintaining the service manager-owned, managed current affordable housing stock is critical, especially as it is aging. There's a need for a long-range asset management plan and resources to manage risks of housing conditions decline and provide direction for maintaining, redeveloping, intensifying, and or divesting these properties. Next slide, please. CSSD 2022 budget represents 9.3% of the overall tax levy at $16,113,469, which represents a reduction of 2.3%. Since the printing of the budget package, staff have been working with the Airshow Committee and have been advised that the Canadian War Heritage Museum would be changing the format of the annual Airshow in celebration of their 50th anniversary of the Canadian War Heritage Museum. Staff will be removing $21,500 from this year's budget for the Airshow for 2022. Next slide, please. The Commission receives operating revenues from a number of different sources, including the provincial and federal governments, both the city and the county, and a number of one-time and time-limited grants. This funding will come in as revenues and be spent to support the community. And in this slide, you will see that the expenditures are on the other section of the slide. Staff have also worked hard to offset contractual and inflationary increases by finding staff and program efficiencies, all with a net result of a reduction from 2021 of $333,521, again, representing a reduction of 2.3 decrease. Next slide, please. CSSD has one unmet need as requested this evening. The city of Brant, which is the the Red Cross Evacuation Center, which will be an agreement that we'd like to move forward with. The City of Brantford is legislated by the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act as a municipality to develop and implement programs that includes an emergency response plan. As part of the plan, emergency evacuations of persons in the emergency must be included. CSSD is responsible for leading the planning and delivery of the social services plan to address the needs of those persons who are displaced. Historically, the city has relied on the Canadian Red Cross to support the disaster relief, and there has been no direct charge for the services. The Canadian Red Cross has made changes to its delivery model and funding, and is seeking an agreement with the city that builds capacity of emergency social services and helps ensure the desired level of service would be available. The City of Brantford is one of the few municipalities that are left to enter into agreement across southwestern Ontario. Municipalities with formalized agreements will take priority in terms of receiving response, which is pertinent in a large-scale incident across multi-geographical areas. This would be a 3-year agreement with an option to renew for another 2 years with an annual cost of $15,000. With this agreement, the Canadian Red Cross will do 2 things. They will assist with preparedness activities, including participation in emergency exercises, assessments of facilities for evacuation centers, training, recruitment of volunteers, pre-positioning of emergency supplies, and personal preparedness workshops. And they will also be prepared to assist us in the event of a real emergency and the need to evacuate. They will support our efforts with resources for an evacuation center. Thank you. And with that, I conclude our presentation for CSSD, and the team is here with myself to answer any questions council may have this afternoon.
Wonderful. And we have Councillor Sless with the first question. Councillor Sless seems to have trouble.
Yeah, sorry. No, I hit a wrong button there. I had to get back to the screen. I needed to be able to turn my mute off. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions if I could. You indicated 179 new affordable units being contemplated for 2022. Of that 179, are any of those rent geared to income units?
Through the chair, I will defer to our acting director of housing and homelessness just to give you the specific details of what's included in those housing units. Thank you.
Yes, hi, Deb Schlichter, Acting Director, Housing and Homelessness Services through the chair. Some units, there'll be a combination of 3 types of funding. There'll be units that would be at market rent, there'll be units at below market rent, and there'll be units that are rent geared to income using rent supplement dollars. So we will have 3 different layers, and most of those kind of buildings, some of them that have already been created, such as Marlene, is all rent supplement topped up. So they're all affordable housing. Some of them, so each building will have a slightly different operating budget, and each of those operating budgets will come to council for approval.
Okay. Thanks, Deb. I know we need affordable housing, but I think the acute shortage is in rent geared to income housing. And can you tell me of that 179, how many of those are rent geared to income units?
The first 30 at Marlene Avenue are all rent geared to income because of the rent subsidy that's attached. And the 26 that'll be at Colburn will all be rent supplement as well. And Sturton Avenue, the 4 there are all rent geared to income. So out of those are the 3 buildings. They all have rent geared to income.
Okay, I believe that we're anticipating a build to start on Shellards Lane, hopefully this year. Will that have rent geared to income as well?
Yeah, we're still at the very early stage of that particular development. We haven't even done the feasibility study yet. That'll be completed this year. We'll have a better sense at that point, the number of units, and then we can put together a pro forma operating budget to see what the mix of income will look like.
Okay, thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
And I guess, Mr. Chair, through to Marlene, you indicated a $21,000 decrease because of the 50th anniversary going on with the sponsor of the air show. does that mean there is no air show, or does that mean that cost is being absorbed by the sponsor?
So through the chair, yes, there will still be an air show. It's just taking a different form due to the 50-year anniversary, and the cost will be incurred by those who are putting on the show.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Actually, further to that, the air show is a different format. The annual charity air show has already been canceled for this year because of COVID. What is happening is the Warplane Heritage Museum is moving their air show from Hamilton to Brantford because it's a better venue for an air show. So it's going to be a paid air show. It's a different format. It's not the charity air show. And that's why the city's not picking up some of the expenses that they normally would. And to follow that up, that's just for this 1 year. That'll go back into the budget for next year.
Okay, just further then, probably to you, Mr. Chair, you seem to be on top of this air show thing, is based on what they've done in the past in Hamilton, is this an affordable air show to the folks? Because in Brantford, they're used to getting, that's a free show and everybody can attend without restriction. If they're charging, that's going to take some of the clientele out. I just wonder how many it's taking out. Is it an expensive proposition to enter the air show under this format?
Yeah, I don't know what the price is going to be, but it's going to be a 3-day air show. Normally what we have is a free air show on a Wednesday. This is going to be an air show that's on a long weekend. So it'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There will be an admission at the gate. I'm not sure what the amount will be, but it won't be the typical format that we usually see with our charity air show. Hopefully that will return next year as COVID eases up.
Okay, so we won't be supplying buses and all of that at our cost then for this.
If they want buses, that's something they'll have to pay for because this is a paid event. It's not our charity air show.
Very good. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Davis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and through you to Marlene. Marlene, this is not particularly relevant to your department, but has an impact in your department, I suspect. And one of the unmet needs we have before us is the security service, and continuing beyond July, which would be the end of the pilot program. Can you tell us what would the impact be on your operations, in particular housing and homelessness services, if that were to be discontinued?
So through the chair, thank you for the question. As you can appreciate, the mobile security team has been a truly invaluable services for the housing sites and the encampment teams to provide greater security presence and reducing risks of municipal properties, including the patrolling of our housing sites, including Lauren Towers, Brant Towers, Winston Court, John Noble Home, just to name a few, and you can appreciate there's many across the city. As you may recall from a report from December, there are approximately 700 reported security incidents on a monthly basis. And from that report, from January to September of 2021, of those incidents, there was 1,323 that were directly related to the housing sites. So continuing with security for the housing sites will be critical moving forward. The security team is really instrumental in supporting our collective efforts, also with our encampment and homelessness work that we do, as they've been working collaboratively with HRC and the BDOT, so the Housing Resource Center and the Brantford Downtown Outreach Team, and working with our bylaw teams to coordinate all of the research services for the safety of all. So housing and security have been working together to optimize the security across these sites. And there will, if in the event that unmet need is not met, there will still be an ongoing requirement for security at the sites. And as I've stated, working with our encampment efforts, if the unmet need was not to move forward this afternoon or this evening, we would need to go back and determine what options and costs we would need to bring forward to council for consideration to continue with security at the sites and for our encampment efforts.
Great. Thank you very much, Marlene. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Carpenter.
Thank you. Just a question that was sparked by Councillor Sless's questions. Most of my questions he did answer. He did ask. The airport that's going to be used by the Hamilton Group. How much revenue will the airport receive out of this? How much rent are we charging for the space? Anybody know?
So through the chair, if I could ask Aaron or Lori Dawn to speak to that specifically.
Hi, good evening. Through the chair, Lori Dawn Caven, Manager of Community Recreation and Events. Under the agreement that we're compiling for the 2022 air show, we have a special event fee that we will be charging for each day of the festival setup and takedown, as well as the duration of the show, to a total of $1,250 per day. So that is the revenue that we will be charging for the use of the airport.
So we're getting $3,600 for the airport, and we don't get any of the gate revenue at all?
So that is over, it will be $1,250 over 5 days, Councillor Carpenter. And we will not get a portion of the gate revenue, no.
Okay, and are we going to be, we're going to make sure they're going to provide the maximum amount of insurance that's required?
That's correct. All those details are outlined in the agreement.
Okay, could I get a copy of the agreement when you get a chance? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, and some follow-up questions. That fee that's being charged for the air show, will that go into the airport account?
Through the chair, yes, that's my understanding.
Thank you. And through to Miranda, the 21,000 you're taking out that normally goes to the air show, will that be going back into the budget next year?
So through the chair, the 21,500 would remain in base for the 2023 event, as we're understood that event will continue next year.
Okay, and looking at the actuals, the affordable housing for the city, the actuals for 20 and 21 are 87 and 28,000. The budgets were in the 90s, and you're increasing that budget. Is there some reason why those accounts were underspent, or why the budget was so much higher than actuals?
So through the chair, the actuals are a point in time, and I understand that there's a significant amount of inputting that is still being inputted into those. If I could ask my finance friends to speak to it, or Deb, that would be great.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's nothing really I can add other than Marlene already indicating that not all the year-end entries have been completed yet, but I did miss specifically what account you're referring to, if you wouldn't mind repeating it.
Yeah, it's 134270, affordable housing city.
Yeah. Yeah, I would suspect there's still year-end entries, especially that need to happen between city county, that are going to impact a lot of these cost shared services.
Okay, would that apply to the strong communities? 2 lines down on that.
Yeah, I'm just speaking in generalities. I wouldn't be able to discuss specific business units with a great level of detail, but a lot of these units have all their expenses currently in them. And then there's going to be year-end recoveries from either the province or the county for a number of these items, yes.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments? Councillor McCurry.
Sure, thank you. Through you to Ms. Daniels. Joelle, what was the cutoff date for municipal staff to submit their 2021 accounting?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there were a number of internal cutoff dates for various year-end activity. I believe the last one was just as recent as this past Friday.
Okay. So the monies that we have to reconcile, provincial monies and county monies, what are the, for monies received by the province, obviously, if it wasn't received by year end, it's not coming. Is that a fair assessment?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, the province year end is a bit different than ours. So we just need to ensure that all the expenditures and other items are in those accounts prior to doing any of the cost share entries to accrue any grant revenue that would be coming from the province or any cost sharing revenues that would be due to us from the county.
So their province's year end is March 31st.
Yes, that is correct.
So is that so our reconciliation will come after that date for province monies, will it?
With respect to our calendar year, we will do an accrual for county revenues that reflect our own, the share of expenditures on our programs to December 31st.
Okay. And I did ask this question previously relating to another item, but could you state at what date and time the corporation of the city of Brantford will have a final accounting which is unaudited available to view?
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair, staff is estimating that we're expected that we're going to be able to bring a preliminary year-end variance report to the Finance Committee at its March meeting.
That would be first week in March?
I believe it's the second week
Okay.
of March.
Thank you very much for that, Joelle.
Okay, seeing nothing further. There is one unmet need from Community Services Social Development. The committee may move a motion to refer the individual unmet need to step 10 of the budget worksheet where all referred unmet needs will be considered. Councillor Utley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the unmet need of $15,000. Seeking a seconder.
I see Councillor Carpenter is willing to second that. Any questions, comments on this item?
The only comment I have, Mr. Chair, is I think it's a very small amount, which is negligible in the overall budget, but I think that $15,000 could do a lot of good for the Red Cross. Thank you.
Councillor Vanderstel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps the experience predates some members of council, but there was a house explosion in, I believe, the 4th Ward quite some time ago, and the Red Cross did step in and performed an amazing duty of care to the residents in that immediate area and those who were affected by it. And when you see the level of training, expertise, understanding, and organization that this organization brings to crisis points like that, it's something to be beheld and actually revered in a lot of cases. This is like an insurance policy, and I certainly hope we will find the support for this on council. It's an unfortunately it is an expense, but it's something that we can't do without, considering some of the circumstances we have faced in the city over the last 8-10 years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McCurry.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Through you to staff, can you offer an explanation to us with respect to the need for that in this year's budget and why it's on our agenda now rather than last year, the year before, or the one before that?
So through the chair to you, Councillor McCreary, this has, like, the Canadian Red Cross has always supported the city and municipalities for emergency events, and they will continue to do so. However, they have changed their delivery model and funding and are seeking an agreement. Most municipalities in the Southwestern Ontario areas have already signed on to these agreements. And we're one of, I think, 3 that haven't, Brant County being one, ourselves, and I believe Holdham and Norfolk was the 3rd. Without these formalized agreements, and if we do have a larger scale incident that is cross jurisdictional or across multiple municipalities, the response for those other municipalities with agreement would take priority. Additionally, Red Cross will, along with being available and supporting us during an evacuation with the potential displacement of our citizens, they, as part of this agreement, will assist us in all of the preparedness and prepare us to be able to be a bit more self-sufficient in setting up the evacuation centers, triaging those who enter the centers, supporting them with their needs. And there'll be workshops and training. So that is something that they've been there to provide us with, but haven't really been formalized. So this agreement will help with the formalizing of the preparedness activities and support us with having access to the Red Cross in alignment with all the other municipalities that have already signed on these formalized agreements. And that's why it's coming to you this year. It is a change that the Red Cross has implemented and is moving forward and seeking that agreement with us.
So they concluded these agreements with all the other municipalities in the last few months?
I'd say in the last year or so, Councillor McCreary.
They're just getting to us now.
We've known about it for a while in working with Chris Lutzy and the emergency response plan. And as we were reviewing ours, we reached out with the Red Cross, and we've been working with the county as well. It came to light. And so we are working through that and seeking approval this afternoon.
So what's have we had any discussion with the county about this? Because clearly a disaster of some scale is not going to involve just us.
So through the chair, a disaster or an emergency could impact the city specifically, or as you stated, could be also for the city and or the county, or a combination of both. As a service manager, we would be providing support to the county as well for the evacuation center. I do sit on their emergency control teams, and I have been working with them. So they too are looking at an agreement with the Canadian Red Cross to proceed forward as well.
So we no longer share an emergency measures officer with county, is that correct?
That is correct.
Is this is a coincidence that this is here this year and that we don't have that agreement with the county of Brant anymore? It is, right?
My apologies, Councillor McCreary, could you repeat your comment? You broke up a bit there.
Well, you've answered my question that we no longer share an emergency management officer with the county of Brant. That's sufficient. Red Cross is funded by whom?
The province, but the province.
And has their funding been reduced?
Through the chair, I'm not aware of any changes in their funding or how they're funded. That hasn't been part of the dialogue. They are seeking support and funding to provide the resources. I can definitely reach out to them and have those answers for you if as we move forward.
No need for that. Thank you. Thank you, Marlene.
Okay, Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marlene, it just appears to me, you keep saying they have different delivery model, but I think really what it is, they can't afford to give it to us free anymore. And they need help paying for the service that they provide to us. Is that fair to assume?
Yeah, to a degree, I would agree with what you're saying. They are changing their delivery model in the sense that I think the preparedness activities will be more formalized, and they'll actually be working with us on that. In the event of an emergency, they would continue to provide the resources and support to the municipality.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Carpenter.
Hey, Mr. Chair, just a quick one. I was there for the explosion in Brentwood Park, but how does this work with the victim services? Because victim services was heavily involved in that as well as the Red Cross. So, Marlene, sitting on the committee, victim services, I would take it as part of that committee in that emergency management.
So through the chair to Councillor Carpenter, yeah, victim services is one of our providers, and locally we work with many providers as we move forward in preparedness and actually responding to an emergency. So yes, victim services is an organization that we work with.
And do you know how they're funded?
Through the chair specifically, I'm not sure. I'm assuming it would be provincially, but again, with that, I can go back and confirm their funding as well.
Thank you.
Councillor McCurry.
Mr. Chair, thank you. There are no small amounts in our budget because everything adds up. And I can see that there's a good case to be made for this, and I don't see any reason why this shouldn't go forward. But you know, with every new item that we add into the work that we do, it creates more work for municipal staff. Marlene, is there more work on this item now for municipal staff, in as much as this seems to be perhaps more of an ongoing dialogue?
So through the chair, to you, Councillor, I would actually say it's enhancement in the work. Now, I wouldn't say more work. It'll support the work that we're already doing and we need to do. And their expertise in providing emergency response will actually assist us and help us gain efficiency so that as the time goes on, we'll be better prepared to actually provide the service in the event of an emergency.
Okay. I guess it's, Mr. Chair, I guess it's kind of all about priorities. I wonder if staff could give consideration to something that we currently spend $15,000 on that perhaps we don't need to do anymore. And if you think about that and maybe give us an answer back, you know, before we finish up this process, okay?
Okay, seeing no further questions, we'll call the vote on the motion to refer the unmet need to step 10.
Affirmative for me, please.
Councillor Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion to refer carried unanimously on a recorded vote. Those in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillors Vanderstelt, Utley, Sless, McCreary, Martin, Carpenter, and Antosky.
Okay, that brings us to budget adjustments. And because the reduction for the air show came in after the budget was presented, we need a motion to take that out. And I have a mover for that. Councillor Vanderstelt, seconded by Councillor Utley. Any questions or comments? Straightforward. Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Affirmative, please.
The motion to remove the $21,500 for the Rotary Charity Air Show is approved unanimously on a recorded vote. Those in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillors Vanderstelt, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Antosky.
Do members wish to make any motions to any other operating budget increases or decreases? Seeing none, we'll move on to step 8A. Joelle, can you give an overview, please?
Yes, sorry, through you, Chair Martin. So the last step this evening is the 2022 operating budget for the People, Legislative Services and Planning Commission. So information on this commission budget begins on page 41 of your operating budget documents. The budget for this commission is $11,709,481 and represents a 7.94% increase over the previous year.
Okay, with that, we'll ask Heidi DeVries, General Manager of People, Legislative Services and Planning, to commence the presentation with respect to this year's budget.
Thank you so much, Chair Martin and members of the committee. My name is Heidi DeVries. I'm the General Manager of People, Legislative Services and Planning, as Councillor Martin, Chair Martin, just introduced me, and I'm pleased to present the 2022 operating budget for my commission, and also wish to thank everyone who had a hand in bringing this budget before you today. Next slide, please. So the People, Legislative Services and Planning Commission is comprised of 6 departments: Planning and Development Services, Building Services, Information Technology Services, Human Resources, Clerk Services, and Legal Services. We provide a combination of services to the development community, and members of the public, as well as internal services as part of the former Corporate Services Commission. Our key services include planning and development applications and approval, building permits and inspections, bylaw enforcement and parking services, as well as recruitment, health and safety, labor relations and negotiations, business licensing, election services, council and committee operations, which is partly how we're meeting here today, records management and freedom of information. As well, we draft and negotiate agreements on behalf of the corporation, help with drafting bylaws, provide legal opinions, handle the city's litigation portfolio, provide insurance and risk management services, and conclude real estate transactions, including sale, purchase, lease, and license of property. We also maintain, develop, and secure the city's IT systems and programs. Next slide, please. The PLSP Commission has a number of key initiatives for 2022 that tie in with council priorities, as well as the priorities that you heard earlier from CAO Hutchings. Among these, chief is the development approvals process implementation. There will be a report before the Committee of the Whole, Planning and Administration tomorrow from the Building and Construction Review Task Force on this implementation plan, and that remains our Commission's #1 goal for 2022. Included in that is the planning for the development of the expansion lands, which were brought into the City of Brantford from the County of Brant. Zoning bylaw review and update, which is a key document that will complement the official plan work that was done by this council last year, concluded by this council last year, as well as to implement the development application portal to streamline our development approvals process and application process, improve after hours coordination of bylaw enforcement. And you heard a little bit about that tonight from our chief of police in terms of the stratification of the services the police provide. Bylaw enforcement remains a key in that stratified system. Creating a digital city by leveraging technologies remains a priority for our IT services department. We've seen some of that already with the development of the new City Hall, and again, how we're meeting here today in a hybrid fashion. A lot of that, again, was the initiative of this council and implemented by IT services in conjunction with clerk services. IT security and maintenance improvements continue to be a main priority of our IT services department. As we move increasingly to an online platform for much of the work that we do, security and maintenance will continue to increase in terms of being a priority for this commission. A contractor health and safety program is a priority of our human resources department. We have a robust health and safety program for staff, and extending that to the contractors the city hires is a key priority of that particular department. Employee recruitment and retention, especially in this market, is again a key priority of this commission and the HR department. The animal control facility design, which you heard about during our capital budget presentation, is a priority of our clerks department. And their main priority, of course, is bringing you the 2022 election coming soon in October. Additionally, our legal and real estate services department will be planning for the administrative monetary penalty system. A report on that should be forthcoming in the second quarter. And this will be necessary if council is looking at implementing red light cameras or automated speed enforcement to divert those charges away from our already bulging provincial offenses court workload. A corporate risk management strategy remains a priority of our commission, as well as preparing for the potential download of the Part 3 Provincial Offences Act prosecutions from the province of Ontario. Next slide, please. As you heard from Ms. Daniels, our operating budget overview demonstrates that PLSP comprises 6.9% of the overall share of the city's net budget. You can see from this slide that our commission is proposing an increase of 7.94%. I know that seems rather shocking to many people here, and I wanted to identify off the hop that that is actually driven by two particular areas, IT services and building, and is a result of prior approvals. In the slide deck, you'll see those identified as council initiatives. Really what that means is that these were prior approvals that staff or a consultant brought forward to council for approval in year, and is now demonstrated and included as part of our 2022 net operating budget. Every other department worked very hard, as well as those two departments, to find efficiencies and reductions for the 2022 operating budget. The overall budget request here tonight is $11,709,481. Next slide, please. As you can see from this slide, and as well the next slide, which is not currently on the screen here, there are three main areas driving the increase in the PLSP Commission's budget. Number one would be the line here that says City Council initiatives. As I had identified earlier, this is really prior approvals obtained by staff from council, including the report from IT services in 2021, demonstrating a need for some increase in services due to the centralized office and work from home model. This includes Webex and the Zoom licenses that we obtained in order to be able to work in these particular ways, as well as a multi-factor identification system to better secure our online platforms. Additionally, you'll see that software licenses is showing an increase of $107,893. These are contracts that were based on population. Once the city of Brantford continued past the 100,000 population number due to the latest statistics, those increased in the contracts were unavoidable. So essentially that's the JDE and ESRI programs that led to unavoidable increases in that particular line item. Next slide, please. As well, here you will see, as with most of our line items in each of our departments, employee compensation increases, which are again unavoidable, continue to drive this budget number. City staff also worked hard to look for other efficiencies, including sharing equipment with various departments, removing certain costs that are no longer necessary to bring forward, and looking at that overhead and interdepartmental charges, which I'm sure Joelle Daniels could explain better than I could. Next slide, please. And finally, our building department's budget is entirely ratepayer supported. As you can see, the amount coming in demonstrated in our anticipated gross revenues in 2022 is equal to the amount going out, as demonstrated in the 2022 gross expenditures. The reason for the 2021 surplus showing transfer to reserve showing 0 is that we do not yet have those final numbers, though we anticipate a transfer of approximately $3.3 million this year. Next slide, please. Thank you again for the opportunity to present our budget. Our directors from PLSP are here to help answer any particular questions you may have. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Not seeing any questions from committee. The information systems admin is increasing by over 600,000. What's the reason for that?
Thank you very much, Chair Martin. I'll ask Scott Hall to answer that question to give you the breakdown of what's driving that number.
Thank you.
Good evening, Scott Hall, Director of IT Services. Through the chair to yourself, Chair Martin. The increase, as Ms. DeVries mentioned, are related to previously approved initiatives, one being the work from home and the report that was brought forward associated with the accommodation program, and that was in the value of around $350,000, and that $350,000 was allowing us to pay for multi-factor authentication, the Webex Zoom licenses, as Mr. Vries mentioned, some additional bandwidth changes, and as well the change in our endpoint security system. There's also the previously approved eScribe upgrades, which was allowing us to have a secondary encoder and captioning service, which was previously approved as well. And then we had the the AV engineer, which was added as well. And then there was a restructuring that saw the knowledge specialist for the CRM side relocate to IT services.
Okay, thank you. Councilor McCreary, you have the floor.
Chair, thank you very much. Thanks, guys, for the presentation. Scott, can you explain why we need both Zoom and Webex?
Through the chair to Councillor McCreary, it's an interesting question. When we, prior to the pandemic, we were always a Webex shop, and in 2020 we renewed our licensing for Webex. The plan with the Zoom coming in is to reduce the number of licenses we need on the Webex side, because every time we increase there, it becomes an increase each year. So if I was to say we added 50 new licenses on the Webex, then we would be paying 50 more licenses moving forward. But we know with the move to the Office 365 environment that we will be moving staff to Microsoft Teams. We will start reducing the dependence on Webex. We will start to reduce the dependence on Zoom to primarily support meetings with council and that. but the rest of the organization, we will move to Microsoft Teams, and those license costs will start to go down.
What's the cost of the Webex licensing currently, Scott?
Through the chair, the annual cost for all the support and maintenance is just around 105,000 per year as part of the UC budget. And then the Webex costs we're able to get at a much reduced rate. That's why we've recently pulled back on the Webex to launch more of the Zoom. But the plan is that we can pay, at least for the Zoom licenses, we can pay on an annual basis. So we upped our numbers for 2022. Come 2023, presumably if we're all and we move forward with the O365 as planned, that cost will come off for 2023 budget.
Microsoft 365, you pay one fee, is that correct?
Yeah, it is. It's an individual cost, and we will be negotiating that with our providers. But that is an annual subscription, so every year we'll see a significant increase. But part of that was to be offset by that 350,000 that was previously approved. A good chunk of that is also covering off those annual Office 365 costs.
So my 365 costs, I think, are $12.95 a month. Is the corporation spending more than $12.95 a month on 365?
Through the chair, we're still working out those numbers. We base our licensing costs on about 1,000 users, and again, Microsoft has different flavors depending on what functionality you want. So if you just want the base Office suite, which is your Microsoft Office, Exchange, your hosted email, and the rest of the suite, we also wanted the Teams, and in some cases we may need to have some users which have advanced or additional functionality if we decide to go with Microsoft Project or some of those tools. But off the top of my head, I don't. I'd have to look at those numbers, but it's roughly in that same kind of price range.
So are department heads, managers making the choice about which platform they will use internally?
Corporately, we'll be making the decision with the move to Office 365 that will become more of a Microsoft shop. So, it will be no longer an on-premise, Exchange environment. It will be all hosted, and they'll have full access to the cloud-based suite of Microsoft Office. And as far as the collaboration tools, we will be, really promoting staff and pushing the move to the Microsoft Teams platform, as opposed to having to support 3 different, collaboration tools and just try to get some consistency.
So I'll take that answer as a yes to my question, that currently it's not the IT department that's calling the shots, it's departments at some level that are doing it. So when you say that I thought I heard words like, I shouldn't say that, words like we'll be encouraging them. Can I interpret that as meaning you'll tell them what to do and they'll do it?
No, through the chair, we dictate what the departments are using. With the move to the Office 365, it will be, Teams. We are pulling back on the Webex and we're pulling back on the Zoom. That makes no sense for us as an organization to be using 3 different, programs. So I apologize if there was any confusion there, but we definitely will, IT taking the lead on the technology side, dictating what's being used.
No confusion. I think we're in heated agreement. Thank you.
Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the GM, the council initiative. So am I reading that the bylaw enforcement expansion that we did is $269,136? If I see that in the report? And I see it. And what is the contractual 3740 for bylaw enforcement contract? What's that for?
Through Chair Martin. So first of all, that's correct. It's the bylaw expansion. So that's the build out of the bylaw division. And Andy McMahon, I'll call on Andy McMahon to answer your question with respect to contractual bylaw expenses.
Thank you.
Good evening, Andy McMahon, Chief Building Official, Director of Building Services. Through the chair, your question, Councillor Carpenter, the money for the contractual services, that would have been for the contracted COVID enforcement officers, is my understanding.
The COVID enforcement officers weren't through the health unit then, they were through us to enforce, was it to enforce our COVID on our properties?
Well, correct. Both of those offices were enforcing it, as well as other agencies. So the health unit, as well as our bylaw enforcement officers.
And there's we reviewed the Building Act to make sure that we cannot transfer any of the more of these expenses to the building department that's going to receive a $3.3 million influx for this year.
Correct. Those fees are reserved for enforcement of the building code.
Okay, so and we'll be hiring quite a bit when we get the boom going in the north of power line, I take it.
I would anticipate at some point in time we will have to.
Have you already started looking at the recruitment process to make sure that we're able to support that?
As you recall, last year council did approve reorganization of the building department through an HR committee report, and through that we gained 4 new positions in the department, which assisted us with getting through last year. And moving forward, we feel under the current structure of the building department, we're well suited for this year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Seeing no further questions, do members wish to make any motions to any other operating budget increases or decreases? Seeing none, Joelle, can you provide an overview of step 8D?
Yes, through you, Chair Martin. So for step 8D, we started the night with a budget of $172,765,864. There were approved reductions tonight totaling $21,500 for an updated 2022 operating budget of $172,744,364, which is a budget impact after assessment growth of 1.72%, an average residential tax impact of 2.8% or $70.17, an average commercial tax impact of 2.08%, an average industrial tax impact of 1.88%, and an average multi-residential tax impact of negative 4.16%.
Thank you. With that, that brings us to the end of tonight's agenda. We've been going through these fairly quickly, thanks to the excellent work of our staff bringing in a budget that started below 2%. Because of that, these meetings have been going fairly quickly. The hope is that on Wednesday, we'll be able to do that night's agenda as well as step 10 and deal with the unmet needs, which will finish things off so that we won't have to meet on the 14th. So with that, we are recessed until February 9th at 4:30. Mayor Davis.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there have been a couple of members that asked if we do extend into next week, if we consider postponing estimates Monday and doing it on Wednesday. So as chair, what are you ruling if we have to go into next week?
Well, I'm hoping we won't go into next week, but if we do, the Wednesday would be the preferable date. Is that, I see staff nodding their head, that's doable. So
okay, great.
If we do go into next week, it'll be on the Wednesday.
Right.
Councillor Vanderstel.
That being said, thank you, Mr. Chair. If it is next Wednesday, I would likely have to remove myself by 6:00 p.m. It's a regular occurrence. Sorry.
We'll likely be done long before that because all we'll have left at that point, hopefully, is the unmet needs. So with that, we are recessed. Thank you.